8.
You're watching
7,
Experience Comic Culture and Sales.
5,
Streaming live daily to
4,
Facebook, YouTube,
3,
Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
Hey folks, how's everyone doing today? So Nick and Bill are here, but I just thought before we get the show started, if we could all just kind of have a 10 seconds of silence for the great artists that we've lost recently, and then I'll bring on Nick and Bill. So thank you all for being here.
Hey, Nick.
Hey. So, Amy accidentally sent everybody the wrong link, which is annoying. Did you get the right link in both emails?
Well, I only clicked the first one. So I'm
okay. Give me a sec.
Well, welcome everybody. We're
sorry. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Let me make sure Albert has the right link.
We are live, everyone.
Can everybody see me now?
I think they can.
Hey guys, sorry for the delay. Been a little bit of craziness. I need to make sure Albert gets the right link. Amy accidentally sent everybody the wrong link, so it's been a little screwed up. So forgive me, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. And I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. It's not the best of occasions. I don't know how many people here knew John. If you did, please feel free to say so in the chat. I can only put so many words up on the screen. So, you know, on a lot of levels, John was the greatest. He was a great friend. He was a great artist. He was a great soul. He had a great partner in Tara. And I'm pissed off at him. He's only 52. He shouldn't have died.
Yeah, you got that right.
This hit me hard. This hit me hard. It was a debate whether or not I was doing a show this week. Sorry, I just want to get the sound off. Just been one of those days. But felt like at the very least we should commemorate his life. His body of work will last forever. It'll outlive us all, which is nice. Jay, do you get those pictures I uploaded to Slack of me and John Lucas and Neil and Jay at dinner?
Give me just a second. I got them in a different brand. We kind of ran out of picture space. So just a second.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And of course, we also lost Carl Moline 2 days later, and he was even younger than John at 51. So, pretty shitty week for the industry.
Yeah,
a lot of levels, not on every level. Hey, Comic Art Boston, thanks for swinging by. I knew you've got stuff going on, so thank you. Thank you, Tariq, Gabe, James, TJ. Yeah, I mean, TJ, we're hitting that age, but it shouldn't be this young. I mean, it really, really shouldn't. You know, there's the old saying, and I've said this a few times recently, there's the old saying that only the good die young. And I don't believe that's the case. What I do believe is we only care when the good people die young. I mean, we just, for lack of a better way of saying it, we just brush it off if it's somebody who wasn't a great person. John was a great person. And we got to do a lot of great things with him. 55 is the new 35. Yeah. I agree with that, Lars, man. Yeah, Steve, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, with science and medication, and we're all living longer. It just shouldn't be. I mean,
there's not a whole lot, at the end of the day, that I think, these tragedies happen. It's just when they happen to people that, have affected our lives and are around us, it becomes more apparent that we don't all live to 90 or 100 or 85, and medicine can't solve everything, unfortunately. And it's just, but it hits everybody a bit harder when it's somebody that is that young, that has definitely affected a lot of people who have fans. I mean, not many people rise to the status that John Cassaday was able to do in his career. I mean, it was a long career too in comics, but that's why it's always such a shock, right? Carl the same way, really. At the end of the day, somebody really young who had a few medical challenges, and you just never know. Things turn one way or another, and then you're in a position that's life-threatening. It was awful. I know that I know you worked with him for a very long time. You were the one who actually introduced me to him. I'd never spoken directly with John until that last time you said you saw him, which was in Baltimore 2022, when we were all we're hanging out after the show, and I got to talk for a little bit, and it was, it's cool. He was a very nice guy. Everything, by all accounts. I mean, obviously knowing Albert for as long as I have, he's always talked, said great things about John and his relationship with John, and so it's just always a shock when it's somebody who is relatable in age to all of us, many of us, I should say, in the chat, and you as well. And but like you said, I mean, the thing is, John's he has almost 900 pieces of art on calf alone, right? And that's a testament to his career. And you had asked me to pick some pictures, some of his artworks out to talk about later. And one of the, it was a deep dive. The thing that when I look at John's work, he was like one of the best cover designers of his age. I mean, we talk a lot about a couple other guys in the business, but you really look at the work that he did, it almost seems effortless. But when you look at it as a body of work, John was an incredible draftsman, had excellent understanding of what a comic cover needed to have to tell a story. And that's why when I went and ended up just picking cover pieces, because it was remarkable, one after another, that he was just so solid, and he was very thoughtful in everything that he put together. I mean, even when the designs were subtly different, he knew what technique to use to make the cover say what he needed. I mean, he was a guy who, as a professional artist, was so gifted that again, it's just, it's funny when you almost don't appreciate it, the idea that now you can't get these covers anymore, you can't get that work anymore, and you can't speak to a friend who's been this close to you again, who's giving you so much joy in life.
Yeah, I mean, two quick things. I mean, I knew about this since last Thursday, and I know we all kid around about, me taking my food pictures and everything, because it's so weird. Basically, when I turned 55 in May, every year for the last 25 years, I keep saying, once my birthday hits, I'm going to enjoy some of the summer. I'm not working until 3 o'clock in the morning every night and not doing anything, and I started this year. I did it. I actually did it. I'm like, the hell or high water, once to twice a week. I've made this half a joke. I'm like, I don't watch sports. I can't play sports. I'm not good at bowling anymore. I don't drink. I'm not going to bars. I was a social drinker, but then with COVID, that went away. And I said, I'm bad at gambling. I love to gamble, but I'm bad at it. So I can't do that. So I'll eat. That's something that's sustainable, and I can do that. And so Thursday, I was in the editorial meeting with my guys, and I got a text from Heidi McDonald. We were going to grab dinner that night. We hadn't grabbed dinner in years. And she sends me a text, and she's like, it's going to be a somber night. And Bernie Moreau, there's the third one. Bernie Moreau. So hopefully Bernie, John, and Carl are the threes if everything happens in threes. And he had died the day before, and I get the text from Heidi. I'm like, oh, I guess I knew Bernie a little bit from working with Matt Wagner. Thanks, Jewish Dragons. So I said, yeah, no, with Bernie, we'll raise a glass to Bernie. And she's like, oh, you don't know? And I'm like, don't know what? She's like, call me. I'm like, I can't. I'm in the middle of a Zoom, but I'll call you as soon as it's done. And I called her, and she told me John was in the hospital in a coma. And I just couldn't believe it. I don't know if I was as stunned or more stunned when I was 45. My best friend from grade school and high school died. And Pam came over to the office, and she said, look, I didn't want to call you to tell you this. I didn't want your mom to call you. She's like, Herc died. I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, like, is this one of the rescue cats? What are you talking about? Herc died. She's like, no. Your best friend Herc from grade school died. And I was just like stunned. And I guess with John, just because it's recent, relatively speaking, I mean, Herc and I hadn't talked in probably, we talked, and I actually saw him 6 months before that because his father died. And I went to the services, and we caught up like it was nothing, like I always said, Herc always had a smile on his face, and the only time he didn't have a smile was when he was getting ready to be buried. It's the only time like they didn't, but he was like this happy person, talented. He painted guitars for a living. Like he was famous for painting guitars. People would pay him like $3,000 to paint their guitars. And when I saw him, we picked it back up. And sorry, I'm missing the chat, everybody. I apologize. If there's anything important, Jay, let me know. And he's like, man, don't you wish we had the movies, like the X-Men movies and the Spider-Man movies when we were kids? And I was like, yeah, but thankfully we live to see the movies today. And ironically, 6 months later, he passed away. And now with John going, but when Heidi was like, I was devastated. And she's like, do you want to skip dinner? I said, Heidi, if anything, it's better that you're coming down here for dinner. You and I can talk about this. We both knew John. We're both friends with John. And, and we're grabbing dinner. And I took some pictures for posterity. And I still, because it's the day I found out the situation, I haven't had it in me to post them yet. We put, we smiled, remembering all the good stuff, but she said it's not good. And then I spoke with Tara and John Lucas. I'll throw out names. You may know some of them. John Lucas, the artist, Neil Turret's one of John's best friends. And I texted with Jimmy Aikino. He couldn't talk about it. He was devastated. Jimmy and Neil, Jimmy probably still saw John the most because Jimmy was still in New York. Neil moved to Massachusetts. John Lucas, I think, moved to Alabama or somewhere with his wife. And Jimmy gave me Tara's number. I texted her, and she called me right away. And I was just like, "You've got so much to deal with." And I know she meant it. It hit me harder. I know she, her goal was to make me feel better. And she was like, "John loved you. You're like his brother." I'm like, that makes you feel better and worse at the same time, because you're like, ugh. And, and then talked to Neil and John Lucas a lot that weekend. And they were supposed to do the MRI on Friday, 72 hours after you have the heart attack. And the oxygen didn't go to the brain when he was in cardiac arrest. And the doctor said it'll be a miracle. And even though it's not going to go the way, that it's going to go in the direction you don't want it to go in, you pray for that miracle. And I did have those moments of being really pissed at him for, I guess, this happening. I was a little pissed at myself. I saw him at New York Comic Con, and he wasn't feeling well, so I didn't get to hang out with him. And I'm like, Jesus, I would have loved, in the last 4 years, I only saw him twice, at Baltimore and New York. Baltimore, at the very least, we got to have a drink or two. No, I agree, CJ. But Baltimore, we got to have a drink or two, but New York, I didn't get to. And it's just so weird, because John was one of those guys that if something went well for me, I would let him know. Him, Jay Lee, there's a couple of guys like, "Oh my God, I got this going on. It's so awesome." And he was one of the guys I could talk to. He was also one of the guys I could tell if something wasn't going well. And and John was, when I say that, John wasn't a phone talker. He didn't talk on the phone much. He texted. And something good happened earlier this year that I texted him, but he was worried about me. He thought it was bad. Though I can't say what it is, but it's a TV show we both loved, and something positive was happening, and I wanted him to be a part of it. And I sent him a link with 2 minutes to the show with music, a heartfelt theme towards the end. And John was worried that, bluntly, I was falling back into depression. I go through depression like a lot of people. I always say you don't get these highs without getting the lows. And he called me because he was worried, which meant the world to me. Because like I said, he didn't like talking on the phone. He preferred to text. And, I was putting something together that he's now not going to be a part of. That fucking sucks. It's just something that I was chasing for 17 years. It's, all right, 16 years plus. 2007, earlier this year it was whatever. Doesn't matter. And now he's not going to be a part of it. One of the reasons why this is my favorite piece of John Cassaday art, just to go real quick. We tried to get the Lone Ranger license 3 times. The first time we went to go get the license, the rights holder said, "Oh my God, this is great. We're going to have a comic. We got a movie script for you. We want you to adapt the movie script so that we can show Fox how great it is." And I'm like, okay, it's the Lone Ranger. And Lone Ranger is one of John's favorite characters. And they're like, "Here, let me give you the short version. The Rangers are chasing Cavendish's gang. Think Unforgiven." I'm like, all right, yeah, I can think Unforgiven. Cavendish's gang is in a ravine. the Rangers are picking them off one at a time. They don't know why they're not giving up. The sun goes down. I'm like, oh shit. The moon comes up and they turn into werewolves. And they kill or turn other Rangers into werewolves. Dan Reed is the only survivor. That's why he needs the silver bullets. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, fuck. I don't want to do Buffy in the West.
Yeah, that's
So we turned it down, and then it went to Sony, and they were like, "Oh, look, we're going to do the Lone Ranger, but we're thinking of gender swapping." And I was like, "Well, you're not doing the Lone Ranger then. I mean, it sounds decent, but why don't you just make a Western that's not the Lone Ranger?" I was like, "We're not going to do this." So Planetary 22 came out, and it was the Ballad of William Leather. And I read it, and I was like, okay, this is the Lone Ranger if he was the Punisher, but this is the Lone Ranger we want to do. So I called up John and said, hey, man, I'm going to go after the Lone Ranger. If I remember correctly, it's one of your favorite characters. Do you want to be involved? And he was like, yeah, because the thing is if you see this page, this is after the Rangers are killed because Cavendish's gang wanted the silver. And the word balloons aren't here, but basically what William Leather did was he melted the silver into bullets and he tipped them with poison so that even if he didn't kill them, they would die anyway from the poison as long as he hit them. And the panel said if they wanted the silver, they were going to get it. And that's what John wrote here. And, you know, thanks for being a good friend. And we got, honestly, I could say this is probably the best thing I ever did for John, I guess, on a lot of levels, because he got to be the cover artist. He got to work with a writer that he loved. So many things came together waiting for this to be done right. Joe Ryban in my office, as we're pitching writers, there are writers, I'm not going to name names because I don't want to make it sound dismissive, but there were writers that you would think, yeah, they can write the Lone Ranger. This is a good pick. And Joe's like, what about Brett Matthews? And we're like, sure. He was part of Serenity. He's like, wagons in the sky, wagons on earth. So I emailed John, like, what do you think of Brett Matthews? And John emails me back, and he's like, I love the idea. Matter of fact, I'm flying to LA tomorrow. I'm spending the weekend with him. I was like, what? And it just all came together. And he got to do everything he wanted. The first cover, he kind of, you know, you go back to what you were saying about designs. The first cover, he had the sheriff's badge in the sand with blood on it. And the last cover, number 25, had the silver bullet. And, you know, he was involved in the plot. He was looking at the pages as they came in. I mean, he put more work into that than he needed to. But he was having fun. And he had input, and he had a great relationship with Brett. And he just, I mean, he got to do something that he loved. He got to do something that meant so much to him. And when he gave me this page, I was just like taken aback. So it's one of the reasons why, you know, and I'm glad you came on, and I'm glad you picked the art, because when I was looking at Cav trying to pick art, I just kept freezing looking at the art to pick. I was just like, I can't do it. So I appreciate your coming on. I mean, like I said, John was always generous. Like if he worked on a project with somebody for the first time, he might give them art. He knew how big of an Alpha Flight fan I was. So I actually bought the complete Alpha Flight #1 from him, and he's like, "Let me give you something." He's like, "I'm going to give you something." I had no clue what it was going to be, and he gave me the first. He did a recreation of the first appearance of Guardian from I think it's X-Men 109. I mean, look at how awesome this is. I mean, Guardian, Storm, Wolverine, Colossus, Banshee. It's just, like I said, just a great guy, really generous. You know, we would talk about Alpha Flight and how great it was, and how if you read the first 12 issues of Alpha Flight, the most amazing thing is you have almost all of them in the first issue, with the exception of Puck showing up on the last page.
Mm-hmm.
All the issues in between being about single characters or about Beta Flight or Gamma Flight. And then the last issue, they come together, and that one twist at the end. And you know, guys, if you haven't read it yet, spoiler, it happened 40 years ago. With Guardian just being distracted by Heather and dying. You didn't expect that. So, I mean, you know, and John was working on his own magnum opus that he's been working on for like 16 years, and now it won't see the light of day. He didn't finish it. So, yeah, you know, hey, Jay, let us know when Albert's here. Okay,
He's in the green room, actually.
Oh, yeah, bring him up, because I think, you know, Albert obviously has been friends with John for decades. So I think it would be nice for Albert to say some nice things so I could shut up.
Well, I don't know what to say. John's a great friend. I knew him for over 25 years. I've known him since, like I wrote about Scott Dumbier. He introduced us, and John at the time was looking for somebody to sell his art for him, and he just finished Desperados, and he was working on a new series called Planetary. So I looked at his artwork and I said, "Wow, it looks great," and sure, I'll take him on, and we've been great friends since. Feel sad for his passing, and he was a fantastic guy. You know, he always worried about me. I should have been worried more about him, but yeah, I just we just it's a terrible loss, and yeah, I'll have a lot of fond memories with him. You know, us going to Brazil, hanging out, going to dinners. Yeah, just we had a lot of great laughs. We talked about a little bit about collecting. I always make fun of him because he was a Yankee fan, and everybody knows I hate the Yankees. So yeah, I just I always called him a front runner, and that he's from Texas. Why would he like the Yankees? And he always jumps back at me, but I always make fun of him. I say, "You're not from Texas. You don't have no Texan drawl or anything." And then he'll just come out with the drawl and said, "See, I can hide it." And I said, "Okay." He was just a really great friend. He just, I'll miss him terribly. So I don't, that's really all I have to say with it. I mean, Nick got some great pieces up there. I mean, that Alpha Flight recreation that covers, that X-Men cover, that recreation is pretty cool. We made several trades. I made several trades with him. Nick knows some of the trades. I did get the Planetary 27 cover out of him. That's something I always wanted. He traded me an X-Men cover. I traded him a lot of pieces, I even sold him that Alpha Flight 1 that now Nick owns. So, at least Nick has it. It's gone to a good home. I just, it was a terrible loss, and I really would miss the guy. That's all I have to say.
I think one of the great things about John was, as far as I know, you know, like I probably before COVID saw him 6 to 8 times a year, sometimes a little bit more. You know, like even if I went to like New York to have a dinner with somebody, I check in with him to see if he wanted to hang out a little bit after, which we did. And I think John, you can say John was unassuming. Is that the right word? He treated everybody well. You know, if
for sure.
He didn't care if you were, for lack of a better way of saying it, if you were like a big shot with lots of money, he wasn't impressed. If you weren't a nice person, he didn't care. And if you were a fan or anything, you know, didn't matter what position you were in life, if you were with him, talking to him, he made you feel good. He just made you feel good. He just had that persona of, I might be saying it wrong, so forgive me. I'm not better than you. You're not better than me. We're just, not that he thought this way, but just like, you know, hey man, we're all people. I mean, John made so many friends. There would be restaurants we would go to, like this one really fancy Japanese restaurant, and we would go, and like the maitre d' like gave us the best table and everything, and you know, I was like, oh mom, man, how do you know? He's like, well, I met the chef once, and I gave him a Batman head sketch. Didn't know who he was. Told me he's the head chef at this restaurant, and he told me anytime I come here, we'll get the best table available. It's like, you know, like that's just the thing. Like he would do that, and he just knew, you know, just everything about him was great. Every single thing about him. And, you know, I mean, and I'll say, I think, Bill, you started off saying this. He was one of the best design guys in the industry. I mean, he knew how to design the cover. He knew how to make everything special. And when he was working on Captain America for Marvel Knights, I'm pretty sure my memory's right on this. Him and John A. Reber had a story they were working on, and then 9/11 happened. And he talked to John and said, we got to redo the whole story. We got to start over. 9/11 just changes everything about Captain America. And he put passion into everything. He wasn't, I mean, everybody cares about money to a degree. I don't want to say he didn't care about money, but if he wanted to do something, he did it. I mean, and, you know, Albert used to rib me a little bit. Not much, like once or twice. He's like, can you ask John to stop doing covers for you? I can sell his Marvel covers much quicker for more money than the Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, I just told him stop doing Sherlock Holmes, and
You would never say that, Albert.
and I was like, stop the Sherlock Holmes thing.
Well, you know, the one thing I'll tell you a takeaway from the last, you know, few days watching, you know, reading a lot of posts on Facebook about John is that, you know, the people that he let into his life, and there were a lot of people. I mean, when you travel a lot and you're in an industry like this, you certainly meet a lot of people. And to a person, you know, many people referred to John as like a brother. I mean, like you guys are doing today. I think John was just a very modest, humble guy that in his interactions with people, he, you know, he was kind of like an everyman, right? He was maybe that's part of his Texas roots that didn't leave him, Albert, in his move to New York. Either way, at the end of the day, the people that got to know him fairly well, or even a little bit, felt close to him, and that, you know, that's a special trait that not everybody has. But clearly, John, you know, embodied that, and that was just a part of his persona, and it's and that's what makes a situation like this all the more difficult, right? I mean, if it's if you don't care about him, you're not here tonight talking about him. So, you know, John's legacy is, you know, goes beyond the art. It's the relationships he made with the people that he got to befriend and work with, and you know, and that just says a lot about a person, because it doesn't happen all the time. You know, it's just says a lot about his personality.
He never let it go to his head. He just never did. You know, this is a guy who I think his first work was with, not that, you know, nothing wrong with it. His first work was with Caliber Comics. And, you know, Mark Waid hired him because of his talent, but because he was a nice guy. I think the oldest story I remember John telling me was he was at a convention in Texas when he was a kid. And he showed his artwork to Frank Miller. And Frank looked at his art and was like, oh, wow, this is pretty good. And gave him some words of encouragement. And John was like really happy and thanked him and walked away. And then Frank told everybody, hold on a minute, went after John and gave him a piece of art as a gift, like, here, keep at it, you know? And that's you know, you look at that, and that's just the kind of feeling John gave everybody, that you could love him right away. And there were, I can tell you from experience, there were things that people approached me, like, you know, because of my relationship with John, about doing some work, whether it was inside or outside of comics. And John's deciding factor wasn't the money. You could offer him 10 grand to do an illustration, but if he didn't think he could do a good job or wouldn't enjoy it, he wouldn't do it. You know, it just wasn't for him. He just wanted to do what he enjoyed. I mean, again, and I'm not saying that money doesn't matter, because it does. We all need to eat and live. But he made that less of a deciding factor, and he could have been somebody who just wanted the big money projects. I mean, again, he was working on this magna opus for 15 years, you know, because he wanted it to be perfect. It was the most important thing. And he won't get to enjoy it. And that sucks. That really sucked. And yeah, CJ, we do need to celebrate our friends more when they're here. I mean, we don't have a choice, because we're not, you know, whether we go or they go, we're not going to be able to long term. I mean, I don't know. I'm rambling. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, Bill picked a few pieces of art. Jay, you want to start showing them, and Bill can talk about why he picked them?
Yeah. Could you call them out for me, Bill, so I can find them? Because I got a bunch of art here.
What did I pick? I had, I know there was an Astonishing X-Men cover in there. There were a couple Planetary covers, Star Wars cover with, oh, that's a nice page. It's got Cyclops on it. You know, I forget when I first learned about Cassaday's work. You know, it was pre-Astonishing X-Men, but certainly as an X-Men fan, when he started working on that book, that was like for me, a defining moment in really appreciating his work. And it wasn't just because of the amazing, you know, storytelling he had on the interiors. It was kind of like what you were talking about earlier, Nick, about how he approached the book with the badge in the dirt, and you know, 12 issues later, it's the bullet. There was something about, you know, that's really iconography, and he approached the X-Men in a way that I just really, you know, his covers were succinct and unlike any we had seen before. You know, I mean, I remember when Albert was first posting those to his site for sale. I mean, I picked one up. They were just amazing, and I think, like you said, I mean, clearly John took projects that he really was interested in and passionate about. And like when this series came out, I mean, everybody took notice in John, you know, even though they were already doing that before that. And the cool thing about John early on too, and, you know, we still had Wizard Magazine and things. I mean, people really, other creators really were impressed by John's skill. Like he's mentioned Frank Miller earlier. I just remember a lot of different creators talking about John, and you didn't see that kind of buzz about new but John definitely, he had that. And for me though, when he started working on Astonishing X-Men, that was That was it. I mean, he was a rock star from that point on. Just like I say, I mentioned it earlier. He knew when you needed shading on something, or to go tonal on a piece of art, or when it just needed to be line art. I mean, he just had that subtle. He could do subtle work like that just made his art all the more special. And nobody drew the piece like John Cassaday. I mean, you look in that first panel there. I mean, that's one of the coolest beasts ever drawn, in my opinion. I mean, if a beast could exist in real life, he would look just like John drew it. So
yeah. They got these AI trailers now on YouTube that some guy's posting, and actually, I think one of the beasts, it's all like the Avengers in the 70s, the X-Men in the 50s, and as much as you hate looking at it because it's pure AI, you kind of it's like a car crash. You want to look at them like, what the heck? And then the one of them with the beast actually looks like a John Cassaday drawing, which I thought was funny. Now, listen, when John was doing Astonishing X-Men, he actually, he was making a lot of money in royalties on Astonishing X-Men, and a lot of artists would be putting out every issue monthly. He actually talked to Marvel about making it bi-monthly after a little bit because the book was selling so well. He wanted to make sure he put his all into it. So, and I think that Marvel being a business, and I think this was, right after they came out of the bankruptcy, because it was like 2004. I mean, I can't remember exactly, but they were like, if that's what it takes to keep you happy, bi-monthly. We were not even going to ask for fill-in artists. He just wanted the book to be the best it could be. He was working with one of his friends, with Joss, and he was telling the story that he had input on. That's one of the blessings. There are at least 3 series that he did where he had a lot of input: Planetary, Captain America, Astonishing X-Men, 3 great series in a row. And I remember Warren, when we were going to do the Lone Ranger and we got the license, I actually flew up to Toronto to talk to Warren to see if he wanted to write it. And he's like, Nick, no, I appreciate it. Really, really respectful of you. Unnecessary. But the passion on this one came from John. He said there are some stories that we did in Planetary that he asked me to do, and that's why we did it. And this was definitely his. And that was even more rewarding to know that me getting the Lone Ranger license. This was.
Hey guys, I'm sorry. I have to get going.
Go. Thank you, Albert. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care, buddy. Where was I going with this? So when flying to see Warren was before I had the meeting with editorial, and where Brett Matthews' name came up. But when Warren said this is something John wanted to do, it made me feel even better about doing. I already felt great because it's like I know how much the Lone Ranger meant to him. And then just look, we didn't. The bluntness of it is we never paid anywhere near what Marvel or DC paid John. We just wouldn't have it in our budgets. But all the projects that we did that he loved, he got to do the Green Hornet, he got to do the Shadow, he got to do Doc Savage, he got to do Sherlock Holmes. He and then even stuff that was not stuff he grew up on, like Grand Passion with James Robinson. He was like, oh, I'm a big fan of James Robinson. I love Golden Age. I love Starman. He's like, can I read the synopsis before I make a decision? I was like, yeah. And he read it and he was like, oh, this is really cool. I mean, if you look at Grand Passion, those covers are so beautifully done. I mean, like, you know, this may be sacrilege to some people, but he's probably one of the 3 to 5 best design cover artists of all time. And Corey, no, I never shared the bagging and boarding story with John. I will say one thing about John. For his reasons, he really never wanted to settle down. He just, liked being single. Again, there are reasons that aren't my reason to talk about it. But when he met Tara, changed his life. Once he met Tara, I saw him a little bit less, but I knew he was so happy with her. That was more important than anything. And I was really happy that he found someone that made him decide being in a relationship was a great thing. Michael Turner before him was so talented and so nice as well. Jay, did you find some of the astonishing X-Men covers?
You can just share my screen if you want, Jay, and I can run it from there. Oh, you're sharing it, but I don't know how it's not overlaying us. Should move us out of the side, usually.
Yeah, move us to the side.
That's weird. When I share it, usually it just makes everybody smaller.
All right, well, you got the right image, so pop that one up. Pop that image up.
Yeah, you can just, I'll tell you what, you look at my share screen and then you'll know which image to use next. So, yeah, I mean, there were so many good cap covers, right? You've got a great one as well, Nick. And I forget whose cap gallery this was. Was this Alberto's? Yeah, this was Alberto's. Go ahead. It goes back to that cover design. I mean, Cap's been drawn thousands of times on covers, right? And you wouldn't think putting the stars in alignment, right, along with the A, like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It shouldn't work as well as it does, but it's just a brilliant composition. And then he throws in all the extra detail and smudges on something that, on not only his uniform but on his shield, and it's just a brilliant image. I mean, and there were, again, every one of those cap covers was amazing. Yours is equally as incredible, right? And because it's like Cap crouching in the front, another large image, but again, this is it's just perfect. And and you wouldn't think it. I mean, John just had the right eye for a design. And then we kind of marvel at some modern artists that use smudgy techniques and things, but John had that when he wanted it and was using it 20 years ago. I mean, he was just very innovative in his approach to all of his work. He would do the same thing in interiors, right? I mean, he would put in those added touches and details that a lot of artists early on weren't doing, and today we're seeing a lot more creators kind of following suit there. I mean, this is a piece of art that holds up on its own without being colored, and we talk a lot about that today, on the CAF channel. Just, we see so many creators really trying to make works of art. And I think John really got that early on, that was, that was just part of his style. And so I think this is a perfect example of that. And Alberto's lucky to get to see this thing anytime he wants, because it's just simply amazing. And there was like the cover to Astonishing One. It was like a wrapper. Yeah, there we go. That one. I just remember seeing this, and you didn't even know it was a wraparound when you first saw it. But it's like, my goodness, what the amount of detail, effort, and again, the way he's positioning these characters is just so in a really odd way. It's just not the way we're used to seeing them. They're disjointed in a manner that I just compositionally just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But together, John pulls it off, and he pulls it off with more like 24 heroes on one DPS for a wraparound, and again for a first issue, right? I mean, this is a great way. It's like Giant Size X-Men #1 done in the way he wanted to, and he did that too when he had him breaking through the wall. I mean, he just had he knew how to be impactful when he needed to be, and I mean, after you see a cover like this, you have to pick up the book. let's see, what else did I pick here? Never read a lot of Star Wars, but there's a Star Wars cover there. This one, again,
That's a great one. That's a great one. I mean, it's like
funny.
just Han Solo doing the shh. It's subtle, but it's there.
Exactly. And you look at it, this is the composition in general is just kind of straightforward, right? It's just like a Christmas tree built up. But when you look at all the details and the humor and the technique in the way he's rendering the, the main characters in there, especially Darth Vader, it's brilliant. And again, it's funny, we credit who's the guy who gets talked about a lot. Let's say like Dave Johnson, an incredible cover designer.
Yeah.
These stack up as well to anybody out there today or in the past that was doing cover design, because that's everything, right? I mean, covers sell the book. And again, John just had an eye and a way. I mean, you look at this, the more you look at it, the more you realize you want to pick up the book. You start realizing how many stormtroopers are there. It's not just Darth Vader above them. And all that tells a story, which we don't get to, as often in comics these days. So, I'm so impressed. And that was what, I spent about an hour going through CAF myself today to pick things out. And I was trying to pick interiors, but I kept coming back to his covers because they were just so brilliant. And yeah, every other piece that I picked, was just amazing, and I could have picked a lot more. Jeff says he missed it.
I will tell you when he told me like a year before Star Wars was announced that he was doing it. It was like, I'll never forget. It was February. I was there for Toy Fair. And I think we were at the W Whiskey Bar. Is that the bar at the W that all the W's have? I can't remember, but it was like on 23rd, or I don't remember. But it was after me having meetings all day. It was an industry event, but he came to meet me there because he knew I had to be at the party. And he like pulls me in and he's like, Nikki, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to not tell anybody. I was like, all right, what's up? He's like, you're not going to believe this. I'm going to be drawing Star Wars relaunch at Marvel, and I'm working with Jason Aaron. It's like, jaw dropping. And it was just like, wow. Just wow, And when Star Wars came out, I remember he came down here to sign, and and he came down here with Tara, and then they went to Philly for a few days. And like I said, you could see the joy in his face. When I first met Tara, it was in San Diego, and you could just see the joy in his face about being with her, and it just lit him up. He was always a happy guy, but this lit him up in a way that I had never seen. It's just, you're just so happy with your friend being so happy, It's just great. Jay, pop on some other arts. I shut up. Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, I think it was a Planetary trade cover, right? But again, just so simple, right? But it's perfect. I mean, it's like a chess piece. He just had. I see this and I think about the Astonishing covers where they were always kind of focused in on figures. I mean, that such simple things that he would do that he kind of knew how they were going to be colored, which helped out a lot. But again, it's so impressive for something as simple as this. Because I mean, I didn't pick it, but you think back to that Astonishing cover with what was it, Colossus and Shadowcat, kind of merging, in an embrace. I mean, that was cool. I mean, who would think about that? And who would think to just put two figures on a cover and make that work? One of my favorite covers, the one with Emma Frost putting her hands around Cyclops's, visors and the light between her fingers. I mean, it's just simple stuff like that were quiet moments. What's happening here? Quiet moment, but it's so impactful the way he's drawn it, and he just had that. It was just natural in him to be able to take things that weren't necessarily dynamic and put so much energy and story in them that it's just very compelling. So yeah.
Well, you hit the nail on the head on one other thing, which is colors. He always insisted that it was either Laura Martin, because they had such a great working relationship, that either he knew her instincts were there, or he wanted somebody who he could collaborate with, like he could with Laura, or he just wanted somebody he could collaborate with. I mean, it was like, I'm not giving this to a colorist to, he's like, I get it. The colorist wants to make all the decisions, but it's my art too. The finished piece is a combination. And we're either working on it together, or I don't want to work with a colorist that can't be collaborative. That, if anything, the thing that John was toughest on was making sure that the final art, the final book, was the best it could be. So if you had to say, what was the one thing that John would put lines in the sand on, it was making it the best it could be. Because the artwork design here is perfect, but then it comes down to the colors and the logo. Where do you put the logo? How do you put the logo? And the colors. So what else we got, Jay? Oh, this is Kazra's.
Yeah.
Actually, I got pages around this. I'll show those next. But this is just, this is what it looks like without the coloring, I think. Do you got the other part of this, Jay?
Yeah.
Okay. This is it without the coloring. It's with the coloring. Pop that back up. You could say it's more than subtle. It's not subtle, but it's subtle enough that if you forgot that they had put word balloons at this point on there, you would almost think that's the black and white art, Yeah. And Kazra obviously has taste.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to, because this was done 22 years ago, around there, and again, he's doing this kind of work with the tonal work, and for a Marvel book that most artists weren't doing. And Kazra, I would say, as an art collector, he's collecting painterly stuff that came out of Vertigo and other avant-garde kind of books out there, but Marvel and DC artists weren't really doing work like this, that like we see today with the Nick Kleins of the world and the Danny Warren Johnsons, people who are making their finished work look, really polished and finished, like complete works of art. John was doing this 22 years ago because that's just what made the most sense to him. And so I could see, knowing Kazra's taste in Sienkiewicz work and things that were, had a lot of dynamic figure work, painterly styles. Something like this just kind of falls right in line, and it just stands out. So yeah, another great example of John's work.
Well, and this goes back to what I was saying, like John, this was his response to 9/11, and actually Albert kind of said it, John being a Yankees fan. John may have been from Fort Worth, Texas, but he was a New Yorker. And when 9/11 happened, he wanted to address it. Like I said, they had already been working on Cap. Story was done. Art was in motion. And he was just like, no, we're changing the story. Kazra's got that page, and these aren't the same sequence, but same thing. He added the some of the duo shading himself. And I'm really lucky that I have two sequential pages together.
That's really nice.
Yeah, and then from later in the issue, I mean, look at these.
Yeah, his panel structures are very clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those first two is 4 and 5, and then he split them up just right. That's cool.
Here's something that I love because I finally got to get a Daredevil page out of John. It's like the FF anniversary, and you got Daredevil there and Captain America. It's just
and you get
so
the classic 6-panel layout, and you know, for an anniversary issue that harkens back to things in the past. I mean, again, he knows his comics history.
He does. He, you know, in a way, he was an old soul, you know, with a modern approach. And I mean, always, like I said, so for me, I've always been a fan of his art, period. It wasn't just his X-Men or, you know, like here's an all-star cover where, again, this is the cover, the colors and the logo went around this, you know, Stargirl. Or this Avengers cover, you know, it's like the Ocean's 11 moment where Cap joins the team and they all put their hands together. I mean, and that's why I wanted to make sure I showed this, and I wanted to make sure I showed this. This is some of the preliminary work he showed Marvel for the Union Jack miniseries. Baron Blood and Union Jack. I mean, when I saw this, I was like, oh man, yeah, I really want to buy that. Corey, the art is great. The photos and the memories are better. And John even knew when he didn't get something right. Like, he did this, but he decided this was too much, the Jesus pose. So he changed the legs. He was like, you know what? This doesn't work as a cover, not the way it is. So he did a patch, you know? And he even said, this is exactly where I want the blood. He didn't even want to, you know? So, although one day I'll never get to ask him what this layout was for. Just, I don't think Marvel had Conan in 2013, so I mean, maybe he was just playing around for, you know, maybe it was a Dark Horse thing. But you know, I think like I said, I mean, this is the Cap cover you were talking about. Look at how awesome that is.
I mean, look at that. That's, you get 3 caps on there. That's crazy. The design's perfect. Wow.
And you know, like I said, for me, it was a little bit of showing just like how great he was, because I just wanted to really emphasize. And I mean, when I said, oh, look, I finally got a Daredevil cover, I meant with the red costume, because I got this commission that I picked up of Daredevil in the yellow and black costume. And like I said, his Union Jack, I was a huge fan of.
That's nice. So do you have a couple of Cassaday Itoyas? Was it easy to go dig these out?
I have like 2 of them. I mean, you know, when I saw that he did some Hellboy art, I mean, I big top Hellboy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, look at the design of the page. John knew when to add a lot of art, and he knew when to minimize some art. Now I've got some Captain America 2. Now, if Anthony were here, he'd be saying, "Look, there's Sharon,
Hmm. Well, he's
Sharon
not.
Carter, and his Sharon."
Exactly.
Here's some X-Men Alpha Flight.
Yeah, those are classic. Wow.
Our pleasure, Spleen. You know what? It's... And then I got some Uncanny Avengers. Like I said, I was just a huge fan of his art, period. You know?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of easy to say, you know, I've got his Captain America, I've got his Astonishing X-Men, but I will say I'll show something I'm sad about in a second, but between now and showing something I'm sad about, well, here's a Planetary Batman page. I'll have Jay ask Nancy if she wants to come on to say anything about John. But what we should do in a second is show Alberto's video, because I asked Alberto to do a video. This is from the Captain America anniversary issue. I think Joss wrote this. So I was able to get a nice little sequence. I mean, look at how awesome that is. Jay, do you have Alberto's video? Because I think everybody should see Alberto's video. He took the time to do it.
Yes, sir.
All right, pop that up.
Okay, so just so you know, it's gonna play over y'all. So
That's fine.
if you talk, people will be able to hear you. So
Okay.
just wanted to warn you. Okay.
Hey everyone, sorry I wasn't able to join today during the show as I'll be traveling, but I wanted to thank Nick for giving me a chance to honor and celebrate John Cassaday's life and his incredible art. He left us way too soon this week, but I think in that short time he was able to touch so many lives, not only personally, as I'm sure Nick will be sharing plenty of stories as well as other folks in the show, but also through his art. And unfortunately, because I don't tend to do a lot of cons, I never got a chance to meet him in person, but I know his run on Captain America really made a mark on me, and I think it was definitely my favorite work of his, not to diminish a lot of the work that he did in Planetary, X-Men, and a lot of other things, but luckily, I'm fortunate enough to have two pieces hanging in my office that I look at all the time. I'm looking up there at where the pieces usually end up sitting, but they're not hanging there currently because I took them down to show them to you guys. But I just love his art, and I wanted to honor him, his work, and celebrate everything that he's done. So the first piece that I'll show is this beautiful cover for Captain America #4 from 2018. It was a variant cover that he did with incredible detail. Look at how he rendered the shield, so it looks like it's really metal and reflecting the pose of Captain America saluting, and all the detail of how he rendered the chainmail in the uniform and everything. Just beautiful, typical Cassaday work, and definitely a piece that I love looking at on a regular basis. The second piece that I have is a cover that he did back in 2002, cover to Captain America #5, and obviously you see the shield immediately recognizable, but the amazing part about this piece is really the detail that he put on all the faces in the background. Just an amazing piece of art that I don't know a lot of artists that honestly could have been able to get away with doing something like this. Finally, and Probably my favorite piece, but unfortunately one that I haven't been able to hang out yet because it's huge. But it's the splash to the 80th anniversary tribute issue of Captain America that came out in 2021. So just showing Cap and Bucky in the background, obviously celebrating 1941 and the 80th anniversary tribute from there, with Cap holding his shield from back in World War II. So beautiful piece, 18 by 24. So definitely something that is a little bit harder to frame and find room in the house for, but an outstanding piece as well. So again, thank you, Nick, for giving me the time to do this little video. I know John might have left us, but and he definitely left us too soon. But I think it's important for all of us to keep his memory alive and celebrate him, his legacy. For whoever got a chance to spend time with him, definitely honor and celebrate those memories. And I don't want to sound ultra cheesy necessarily here, but I wanted to take the opportunity to remind everyone how important it is what Nick says at the end of every one of his shows every Friday, which is hug your loved ones. Ultimately, life is short. You never know what tomorrow brings. Unfortunately, this has been a rough week to remind us of that. John was incredibly young at 52, and we also lost Carl Moline, or Moline, I'm not sure how to say his last name, but he was also incredibly young and talented, and he was only 51 as well, which is, I feel like, the age that a lot of us collectors are at right now. So hug your loved ones, enjoy life. You don't know what tomorrow brings. And again, thanks, Nick, for giving me the chance to take a couple minutes to talk. And rest in peace, John, James, Earl Jones, who lost as well this week, and Carl. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekends and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you, Alberto. If you watch this later, thank you. Impactful how much he affects so many people's lives. Jay, do you have the photos that I sent, or no? If you don't, no big deal.
I do. I just got to switch the brands real fast.
Okay.
There
While
we go.
you do that, I'll show. Like I said. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. That's 20 years ago, December. We went out for John's birthday. That's me, John, and Jay when Jay lived in New York too. And you got Paul Pope there with his eyes kind of. We caught him when he was blinking or something, and you can't see his face, but John Lucas is there, and John Cassaday and I are like, let's hold our champagne glasses the same for this picture. Because I think that was his 32nd birthday. Yeah, that would be. So on the left, you got Paul Pope. Then you got John Lucas. Then you got my ugly face. Then you got Cassaday. Makes me look good. Then you got Jay. And then you got Neil, who is also one of John's closest friends. Marcus, is that true, or are you just saying that? Look at Lucas with that big ass smile. We were doing something with the maitre d' and the waiter, and I don't remember what it was, but it cracked Lucas up. Man, Lucas has got a great smile. And there's John, like, maybe if I don't look at Nick, I don't have to talk to him. And there's Jay, like, yeah, keep going. That may work. Check out Neil. Crazy, man, having the disposable camera back in the day. Look at Neil. He's like, ah. Such a great picture.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this pile of art I couldn't believe he still had these Union Jack pages. These are pages I bought all at once. I was like, wait, these are still in the Albert's portfolio? I was like, oh my God. And there's a couple of pages. Look at these two sequential pages are just friggin' fantastic. Look at those. And then the last page of the last issue. I wanted to buy the covers. See, this is the kind of guy John was. He had so much fun on this series, and he really appreciated, if I remember correctly, he really appreciated Ben Robb and his collaboration on this. He either gave, knowing John, he gave, but he may have sold. Look at this last page. You got Union Jack at the top, fading away, and then check it out. She's got a baby. Ben has all the covers. So it's like, but at least they're in a good home. Ben actually showed a picture of them all three hanging in his office. But, I mean, John gave us all regardless. I mean, look at this Luke Cage cover. You know? He just always gave us all. That's who he was. These two Spider-Man covers are 3 years apart. And they got, I guess, to a degree, something you could call kind of a little bit of a similar design. But they're so different.
Yeah, they're both really nice.
The one thing I do in my house, I have 6 frames that are normal size and 2 frames that are Silver Age, and I try and change them once every 2 weeks to once a month. But when it comes to like Cassaday or George Perez, I find it better to keep them in the Atoyas that I've got them in, because I'll just sit there and look at them, just stare at them. Here's my other Batman Planetary page. Check this out. Look how beautiful that is.
Nice.
And this is actually arguably my favorite X-Men Alpha Flight page. Baron von Strucker, Guardian. You know?
Yeah.
Just so awesome. Did pick up some Uncanny Avengers. I mean, look at that Logan, how great that is.
Man.
Oh. Yeah, so, yeah, we were talking about Astonishing X-Men. Give me 1 second. Want to keep these in the order where I know they go. It helps for later. We were talking about the 2 pages. Here's the giant Astonishing X-Men. No tape. John didn't believe in taping 2-page spreads if he could help it. But it's like minimal characters at the bottom, a ton of characters.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Here's the Astonishing X-Men page from number 5, The Return of Colossus. Number 12. number 15. Like I said, I mean, like John, like I said, he was making a lot of money on Astonishing X-Men. He could have just been like, yeah, I'm just going to put out a monthly book. And he just went to Marvel and was like, listen, you know. And I think he was working on I Am Legion maybe a little bit too or something. And he was still doing Planetary as the scripts came in. He just didn't want to rush, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I do like this X-Men Alpha Flight page a lot. I still like the Guardian page the best. My favorite. But when I saw this, don't tell John I actually take this. This is just so perfect together. Cap fighting the Red Skull.
Wow. Yeah, you had to tape that one together.
Yeah. I just don't tell him. And this one is fantastic. Check it out. This is cover quality.
Oh, that's Uncanny Avengers. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 4. It's not the original tape, Marcus. It's not. Nick was lazy and used a really thick tape. Can you reprint John's Lone Ranger? We don't have the license anymore, TJ, but they're out there. Still my favorite X-Men Alpha Flight page. And then this is the last thing he did for us that I remember. And we were saving it for something special. And just, it'll still be something special. Just feels ghoul. It feels ghoulish to print this anytime soon. But check out that Red Sonja cover.
Wow.
No, let me take it out of this. I've kept this one by itself because I love it so much. And, you know, as soon as he drew this, I was like, I want to buy this.
Oh, there it is.
I think he was trying to give it to me as a gift, and I cut him off. I said, you put too much work into this. I was like, dude, look at the way you melted the blacks yourself. The way you spot colored this. There's no chance in hell. I was like, whatever you're charging for it, that's what I'm paying. It was like, I can't do that. I was like, you know what? I don't want it. And then when Albert put it on this site, I bought it. I waited till Albert put it on this site to buy it so that I could just pay full price because I felt chintzy if I wasn't going to do that. Did you say what, if anything, happened to what he was working? He was working on, I don't know that it's my place to say. It's something that he was working on for a long time. But I mean, look at it. I mean, it's just, show the cover again. You got it, Jay. I mean, look at that. I mean, look at how much work went into that. Look at the colors on the snake. I mean, everything about it.
He cared about that piece.
Yeah.
Well, you got the license for a while, so you'll be able to hold on to it and still be able to use it a little ways down the road. But that's
down the road. Yeah. But I mean, you look at that and you're like, oh my God. He put so much into this. Jay, did you ask Nancy if she wanted to say anything about John?
I did, but she hasn't answered yet.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I have a good amount of his art. Like I said, the one thing I wanted to make sure I emphasize that, yeah, Captain America, Planetary, and Astonishing X-Men are the big ones, but his Union Jack, his X-Men Alpha Flight, his Hellboy, it just didn't matter. A commission. I mean, look at how fun that commission is. He made sure he put in the fun that Daredevil was in those issues. Just put his all into everything.
Well,
And
you were very fortunate to know him as long as you did, Nick. That's the thing. You got a lot of great memories and a lot of things to remember him by, not just from his art. And that's a wonderful thing to have.
it is. And the community makes it easier. I mean, those who knew him loved him. Those who didn't know him, who loved his art. I mean, look, when they pulled the plug on Monday, it was at like 4:12, somewhere around there. I mean, I won't forget because I got the text like they took him off life support, and I'm like, I don't remember if Amy came and closed the door or if I closed the door. I was just crying. And even though they said it could take up to 12 hours before he goes, they'll put the morphine in him and, so that he can go peacefully. Every step of the way, you think you're going to accept it, When I found out Thursday, I was like, okay, I can pray. I know it's going to be okay. And then as I was talking to Neil, talking to Lucas, talking to Tara, I'm like I said, I'm going in between emotions of being angry because he's gone and being sad because he's gone. And, and then I'm angry on Friday when I'm told the MRI didn't happen. I'm like, what the F is waiting? They said they had to wait. I didn't understand why. I found out on Thursday. I didn't understand why the MRI had to happen on Friday. So they explained it. You got to wait at least 72 hours so that you don't get any false readings. I'm like, okay. And then it didn't happen on Friday. And Tara was like, oh, they said they'll do it by Sunday. I'm like, why? So then on Sunday, they did the MRI and didn't get the result. You're like biting your nails. Like, this is, and like I said, and Sunday I was supposed to do the show with Ruben, and I just emailed him when I found out the MRI was happening, and it was 1 in a million that he was going to come out of it. I just told Ruben I can't do the show tonight. I'll do it if you need me to, But Ruben was understanding and just said we'll do it another time. I couldn't do it, and then on Monday, like I said, when they pulled the plug, I bawled like a baby. And then when he passed away at 6:30, like I said, I thought, I got a lot of the, thankfully Heidi and I had each other Thursday night. Friday, I got a lot of it out of me because that's when they're talking about the MRI. Then they moved back the MRI, and then talking to Neil and John Lucas on Saturday. And then on Sunday, I'm like, is the MRI happening? We're like all texting each other. What's taking so long? And then again, you're thinking, okay, I did all my crying. I'm up, and then all of a sudden it's like they pulled the plug and yeah. And then, I was also the bearer of bad news to some people that were close to John that Neil and Lucas may not have had connections with. I was the one who let Mark Wade know, which was not easy because John was doing stuff, like I said, I think for Caliber. Can't remember exactly, but he was doing stuff there. But Mark Wade was the person who brought him to DC. And, I needed to let Mark know, and I called Bob Wayne. I had to call Bob Wayne Friday night as soon as it looked really bad, and got his voicemail, and then he called me back like 2 minutes later. He's like, "It figures the one time I walk out of the room, that's when he's like, so what's up?" I was like, and I literally just said nothing good. He's like, well, I kind of figured. I haven't heard from you in a while. And I didn't think it was our birthday call. Bob and I are both born. We make the ongoing joke. Bob, Joe Field, George Lucas, and I were all born May 14th. But somehow George Lucas never sends us a card. He's the only one. Spleen, you were going to visit him Monday. Yeah. So when I told him that, And then on Monday, I had to let people know, and it's like I said, just everybody loved John, and that makes it a million times easier, no matter how hard it is, and it is still hard. Just, looking through the photos was hard. It's like years of photos, and you're like, which ones? And it's funny, in like the last 15 years, who has a photo album anymore? Everything's on your phone or on your social media. And that's even harder to look for everything. Yeah. I mean, look, the industry is just so much better for having had him in it. Just so much better. He excited fans. He made people feel good. He was a great collaborator. He did the things that he loved, which is what part of what made him so great, Yeah, I'm just going to stutter and repeat the same things.
Yeah, but you know what I was going to say? I think it's time for a toast, and I'm going to end up having to go myself. Maureen's pinged me that it's time for some dinner and stuff. But, I'm raising a Zevia to John here. But, to his life, his legacy, he's meant so much to his fans, and he will continue. I think he'll be remembered for a long time. These stories that he worked on are ones that, even new comic book readers are going to be discovering years from now. And that's, that's something that not a lot of creators have. But, John had that gift. He's going to continue to give that gift even without being here to people who love the narrative arts in ways that, it's hard for us to appreciate now. But I think people will be talking about John's contributions to this industry. His friends will always remember him for years, and I think that's what's really important about remembering John and his life. And I think again, we're all the richer for it.
We are. Look, and before you go, I'll just say this. I mean, before coming to New York, I mean, John was a director for the news in Texas, and he was always creative. I mean, he directed an episode of Dollhouse. I think it was Dollhouse. It was a Joss Whedon show. And, even though he was friends with Joss isn't going to let him do it if he wasn't going to be any good. But even with the Watchmen movie, he was one of the storyboard artists,
Mm-hmm.
He had so many, again, because I don't want to say, because it may sound like it being dismissive or something, but he had a lot of opportunities to work in film and TV, but he didn't look at them as jobs he would enjoy. So he turned down money jobs just for money. Like Watchmen, he wanted to do. It was like, whoa, I could be part of Watchmen? It's like, yeah. I think John's body of work is incredible, but I think his biggest accomplishment is touching so many people and making them all feel great. And honestly, to the biggest degree right now, it's Tara and his family that we all need to think about and pray for, because they're the ones that are missing him the most, and that's who we need to be thinking about. That's, I'm need to stop being selfish and missing him and just focus on that, because that's the important thing, and yeah, I've got the photos, I've got the memories. I'm really lucky, but all of us are incredibly lucky. So Bill, thanks for being here today. Thanks for picking some pictures that I just couldn't do it. I really appreciate you doing that. And I want to thank everybody. It's funny, since San Diego Comic-Con, every week I'm like, next week we're going to focus on selling. And then one thing after another has happened that, this is, like I said, this is about John, but also, let's keep Bernie Moreau's family in our thoughts. Let's keep Carl Moline's family in our thoughts. It's a shitty week. It's a really freaking shitty week. So, thank you, Bill.
My pleasure. I mean, I told you I wanted to be here for you, and I think this is the proper kind of celebration of his career and his contributions to his friends and the people who were enamored of his work. I mean, this is he did the right thing, Nick. And yeah, and we get to start another week next Monday. Let's hope for a brighter one. So, thank you everybody for hanging out with us. We appreciate it sincerely.
Yeah, thank you everybody. Bill, enjoy with Maureen, and we will talk soon.
All right.
Have a good weekend, man. Thank you. Jay, did you ever get to meet John by any chance?
Unfortunately, no, man. But it's just seeing the art. Man, what a talent! What a talent!
Yeah. It's kind of crazy, I mean, for me, I guess I've been a reader for probably 47 years. And I've been selling comics since I was 12 or 13. So for me, it always feels like when somebody dies, a piece of me is gone. When Neil Adams passed away and Denny O'Neil, the Green Lantern, Green Arrow meant so much to me. That was hard. When Carmine Infantino died, even with Carmine being a little bit of a curmudgeon at times, that was hard because I guess part of it, him being one of the big creative Italian creators in our industry, meant a lot. And he worked on my favorite character, the Flash. I don't know if John's passing at 52 or if he passed at 82, if I would feel any different. I definitely feel like he got more cheated at 52. But again, right now the thoughts really, I wanted everybody to think about John because not everybody here would obviously know Tara or his family. But really, like, if we're going to keep, John went to heaven. There's no friggin' doubt about that, John was a good soul and he went in the right direction. Yeah, it's us and his family and again his partner who are his family and his partner were the worst off. I mean, Tara had him every day in her life. So, like I said, guys, when I said last Friday, hug your loved ones. It's more important than anything. Hey, Steve, how are you? Like I said, I found out Thursday this was potentially happening, and prayed against all hope. Guys, hug your loved ones. Because honestly, you really never know. We lost 3 in 7 days, 8 days. We lost Bernie last Wednesday. We lost John on Monday. We lost Carl on Thursday. Hey, thanks, Commander and Beef. Find someone to share it. Yeah, I mean, look, they were together 10 years, give or take, Mr. Redjack. So, like I said, I missed not spending as much time with him, but I was really happy that he had Tara. Hug your loved ones, guys. You really never know. Try and make the most out of life. The artwork is great. The comics are great. I love them all. But the thing that makes you rich in life is family and friends. And that's the measure you have to think about for yourself, where that is for you. Nobody can decide that for you. You have to decide that for yourself, but I'll just throw out there, the material stuff is cool, but the inside of you, the inside of the people you spend time with, that's where your heart needs to be, in my opinion. So I love you guys all. I love you for being here. I love you for being here, not just tonight, but every week. I love you guys for being part of the community. And I wish you all the best. I will say, keep Tara and John's family in your prayers, but also pray for all the strife in the world to end. Too many wars, too much killing, too much famine in the world. You know, be nice to each other. You never know what the other person's going through. Some people might be assholes, but they may just be having a bad day. If we can all make the world a little bit better every day, the world will be a little bit better every day. So, love you guys all. Jay, take us away, man. Thank you, everybody.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.